So welcome everyone. I'm very excited. This is it's a subject very dear to my heart, as you all know. It's called the name of our course is the Aleph Beit, Love Letters from God, and the meaning of the title will be clear through this year. But first, I want to say that, and I really thank Rachel for hosting it, that in times like we find ourselves in now, it's so important to share Torah, to learn, to teach, that we surround ourselves with words of Torah, and that especially with the Aleph Beit, these shiurim hopefully will help us transform, that they'll help us become more spiritual people, and will bring more light into the world. And we know this world really needs light. So I want to dedicate this year to the safety and the well-being of our courageous, amazing Chayalim and Chayalot, that they should all come home safely, that our hostages should all be healthy and well, and they should come home safely, that our wounded should have a refuah shlema, both physically, emotionally, spiritually, and that all Am Yisrael should be safe and protected wherever they are, whether we're here in Eretz Yisrael or whether they're around the world. Wherever they are, may Hashem please protect His people. Amen. And may Mashiach come soon, because that's what this is all about. So, I just a little introduction. I got involved with the Aleph Beit because I was I had a chabura of finding your purpose. Like what's our purpose here? What's our mission? And one of the ways that we came to was to look at the letters of your name. You know, what first of all, what does the name mean? You know, someone in history or whatever. But also, what does each individual letter mean in your name? Because we know that the letter, as we'll see, the letters of the name create the being, and we will see that. So I was asking myself, what do these letters mean? And so I thought I'd just read a little bit about it, and that would be enough, and we could go on with the workshop. But no, the more I started learning, the more I said, wow, this is amazing. This is really amazing, and we don't really talk about it so much. So, and that was 7 years ago. So I'm still writing. I'm still researching. I'm still writing. Hopefully, I'm getting to a place where it'll be enough for now. But anyway, so let's dive in. The Aleph Beit is not just an alphabet of a language. It's not like any other language. There are, for example, languages which use symbols for certain concepts, like hieroglyphics. There's other languages that take the sounds, and have a symbol for that sound, and so that's how they convey something that's said. That's like the English language. English is based on a, be, that sort of language. There's also languages that use handshakes and facial expressions and body language to convey, and that's sign language. So there's many different kinds of languages. But Hebrew, the Aleph Beit, is not just a way of communication. It was through the letters of the Aleph Beit that Hashem created this world that we live in. These letters are actually the primal energies of creation. as one of my teachers, Rav Yitzchak Ginsburg, says that the letters of the Aleph Beit are actually archetypal energy forms that take God's infinite light and wisdom and channel them into streams of creative consciousness. So I'll say it again, because it's packed with meaning. The letters of the Aleph Beit are archetypal energy forms. Each letter is different. It's formed in a different way. It takes God's infinite light and wisdom and channels it in each letter's particular way, channels it into streams of creative consciousness. In other words, these letters create the world, existence, the cosmos, all of the different worlds of spiritual consciousness. So if we can understand the letters, we can understand much more about this world that God has created and also what we're doing here. So I'd like to first go back to the beginning, back to when there was only Hashem. There was only God in the world. There was no time, there was no space, there was just infinite, perfect, eternal godliness, simple oneness of the Ein Sof, just filling everything. That's all there was. The concept of plurality, of being something else, something created, something other than God, just didn't exist. There was only God. So, if you could just imagine this for a moment, only Hashem, and then it arose, it arose in his mind to create the world. This is what the Zohar says, that for some reason, which we don't know exactly, for some reason it arose in Hashem's mind to create the world. So the sages have, of course, discussed this. What are possible reasons that Hashem could have chosen to create the world? So the Zohar writes that God created the universe, the world, in order to be known. He created the world in order to be known by an other. The Midrash Rabbah says that he created the world to have a dwelling place below. Ramchal writes in Derech Hashem that God's purpose in creation was to bestow his good to another. It's the nature of good to give good. And so God created creation in order to be able to give. So there's one last reason that was given that seems to contain all of them. And this is from Midrash Rabbah, Bereshit, where it's written that the Holy One, blessed be He, longs to enter into relationship with another. That Hashem longed. In Hebrew it's ta'avah. He had a ta'avah to enter into relationship with another. And not just a relationship, any kind of relationship, but a relationship of love, of giving the ultimate pleasure to another. And as Mesilas Yesharim says, also Ramchal, man was created solely to delight in God and to derive pleasure in the radiance of his presence. So that's what we're doing here. That's what we're doing here. And just this concept of, I'm here because God wanted. God doesn't really want. He doesn't have wants. He doesn't have needs. But he chose, he desired to have a relationship with us, with the entire, all of creation, but specifically with you, and with you, and with you, with all of us, each one of us. And that's like just this amazing idea, I find. He created me in his he wanted a relationship with a person, that's me. So, and in a global sense, he created creation, the entire creation, as his soulmate, so to speak. So, how did he create this cosmic soulmate, this Bria, all of creation? So we learn, Baruch She'amar V'haya Ha'olam. He created the world through speech. He spoke the world into existence. But then you can ask, wait a minute. God is not physical. He doesn't have a body. What does it mean? He doesn't have a mouth. What is God's speech exactly? So we learn from Eov that it says, from my flesh I see God. In other words, from understanding me, how my body works, then I can understand some things about Hashem. We know that we're created, but Tselem Elohim, as in the image of God. So by understanding what's going on with me, I can understand something about Hashem. So look at my speech, our speech. How does it work? So speech takes the words, takes the thoughts of the mind and the desires of the heart and transforms them into concrete articulation out into the world. So what goes on within is expressed through speech. What's our will, which is really, we translate our will into our thoughts and into the desires of our heart. So what we can say about God's will is that God's speech is that this is his will. He's taking his will and articulating it out into the world as creation, which is really an amazing concept. And we see in Hebrew actually the reflection of that, because to speak, the daber, and words like divrei Torah, and things like dvarim, all come from the same root. It's from the root of Aleph Beit Resh, and which means that they all have the same source. They're all rooted in the same concept, which is speech, word, and thing. It's all the same thing. God spoke the world into existence. So each letter of God's speech created a certain reality in the world. It's like a template that channels a certain kind of light into the world. If you think of God's infiniteness, of his infinite light, as just to bring it down a level, as white light, when it comes through, when it's refracted through the prism of our time, space, world, it comes in and refracts into colors, the 22 colors of the Aleph Beit. So each one is another letter, but it all comes from God's infinite light. And this goes back to Rav Ginsburg's definition of that these are streams, channels of creative consciousness. They are channels that create reality, our reality. So another way I like to think about it is if you can go back to your chemistry class, if you'll remember the periodic table of elements that was hanging on the board over there. So each atom each element is there, a particular atom with its particular properties. And when each of these elements are combined together to form a molecule, that molecule has certain properties. And so this is very, very similar to letters and words. Each letter has particular properties. And when you combine them with other letters, then you get a word, and it has its own properties, its own reality, its own existence. So it's, as an example, like with the atoms, we have 2 atoms of hydrogen and 1 atom of oxygen, which combine together. They're both gases, but they combine together to create something entirely different, water, H2O. And using that same example, when you have 2 mems and 1 yud, they form together to create mayim. So what mem is, what yud is, 2 absolutely different things, they create water. Actually, mem has to do with water, but it's also materiality. Mm-hmm. And when you're combining that with yud, which is the yud of infinite light, combining together, you get water, which is also an aspect of infinite light, because the Torah is compared to water. It's this water that brings life to us, and we'll talk about that much more when we get to Mem. But so just as an example, so when Hashem said, "Let there be light," by he or, so he said or, which is comprised of an aleph, a vav, and a resh, and those specific letters combined together create the word or and the thing of or. So the letters are they comprise the Torah, and that's how we learn about the letters as they appear in the Torah. So that's a very important point, that the Torah itself is not just a history book or a book of law, but it's also it's one stream of consciousness giving us all of these letters in a particular way. It's like, I think of it like the DNA, the codes that create who we are. You know, the RNA, DNA, and it's all combined in a certain code that at first glance you have no idea what it is. And it's only by studying it and really going deeper that you can understand what each segment of it is, what each letter is, what it means. So, and also, I also want to say that the Torah is not just that, and it's not just the history books, the law books, or the code of the DNA, but it's also a marriage manual. So I'm going back to what we brought out. First, why did Hashem create the world? Because he wanted relationship with us. He wanted us to understand who he is, who we are, and what we're doing here, and how to create relationship with him. So by understanding the Torah in that context, by understanding each letter in that context, we can come to a real understanding of what we're doing here. So I also want to say that just as we are created as a Tselem Elokim, in the shadow of God, as an image of God, so too, as He is the creator of everything, we are also the creator of everything. We use our words to create worlds. He created the world. We create worlds when we use our words, whether through our tefillot, or whether through our thoughts, whether it's through our kavanot, whether it's through our speaking. Just when we're speaking on the street, we use our words to create worlds. So, and as we'll see in some of the other letters, Hashem has empowered us to create worlds. It's not only because we are created in his image, but we, Ramchal and Nefesh HaChaim says it very beautifully. He quotes Yeshayahu and he says, "I have placed my words in your mouth to implant the heavens and to set a foundation for the earth. That's from Yeshayahu. And the Nefesh HaChaim, Rav Chaim of Volozhin, goes on to say that God has empowered man to control countless forces and worlds, handing them over to him, so that he should direct them according to his actions, his words, or his thoughts, whether for good or for bad. So we have this amazing power to change the world. We can build worlds or we can destroy them when we use the letters of the Aleph Beit. So we have to ask, what kind of world do we want to live in? What kind of world do we want to create? And how does it compare to the kind of world that God envisioned to create in creation? So, just going back to the letters, so getting a little more practical. So I like to envision each letter as a gemstone, as a raw gemstone. And in order to see the beauty of each letter, we cut this gemstone into facets, different facets. And each facet brings out another beautiful concept or idea of the letter. So with that in mind, I just like to talk a little bit about each of the concepts that we'll be looking at, each of the facets that we'll be looking at in exploring one of these 22 gemstones. So first of all, we look at what the letter looks like, what its shape is, how it's structured, what's its form. Just physically on the page, black and white, what does it look like on a physical level? Then we can look at what's the sound of the letter. How does it sound? Where is it formed in the mouth? How is it pronounced? There's amazing, like we don't really think about where each letter is formed in the mouth, but there are families of letters that are connected to where within our mouth this letter is created. And then we also look at the name of the letter. How is it spelled? What's the meaning of the letter? What is the meaning of this name that is assigned to this letter? And that's like a very, very interesting. And then we get to the most abstract concept. What is the numerical value assigned to the letter? Like where is it in the ordinal? What is its ordinal value? In other words, where is it in the order of the Aleph Beit? And also, what is its cardinal value? What value does it hold? Is intrinsic to this letter? And that's a little abstract because this is the most abstract part of the letter. But as an example, I'll just bring that the letter Tet is the 9th letter of the Aleph Beit. And it's related to goodness. Tet is the first letter of Tov. We'll get to it. But it's the Tov that is hidden, the Tov that is waiting to be born. The Tov that is waiting to be born. It gestates for 9 months until it's born. And we know that 9 months are the months that it takes for a baby to be born, the hidden good that's waiting. So that's in a capsule, that's the meaning of the letter Tet. And we see that through its shape, we see that through its name, and we'll get to that. So the letters of the Aleph Beit are the essential components that make us up. They're letters of vitality and life. They're letters of relationship to Hashem, to each other, and to ourselves, even to those disconnected parts of ourselves that we are not so connected with. These are letters of love and unity. Our challenge is to learn how to embrace them, not only with our head intellectually, but with our heart, and to bring them down into our bodies. To let these letters flow through us, to seep into our bones, and infuse us with the life that they carry.